Hi there makers and welcome back to Minerva. I'm Annie.
And I'm Gavin.
And this week we're here to talk to you about week 8 of the Great British Sewing Bee, which was Movies Week. So if you've not watched the episode yet, if you were too busy watching Bake Off last night...
Traitors!
Head over to BBC iPlayer, catch up with the episode and then come back and join us. So before we get into the episode, Gavin, what are you wearing this week?
Thank you very much for asking. Given the kind of movies theme and all the velvet that we were exposed to in the Transformation Challenge, I thought I'd dig out my lovely Minerva exclusive Crush Velvet top.
Very nice.
So this pattern is the I Am Rainbow sweatshirt. So I've sewn up the men's version, but there's a kids version and a women's version too. The women's version in particular, so many options. But it's a fab pattern, and this is our Crush Velvet, and this is our Nebulous Night.
It's a lovely print. Really looks
I think it looks fabulous on the Crush Velvet. It's just got so many colours. Yeah, love this. And how about yourself?
So I'm wearing the blouse by the Avid Seamstress, so it's literally just called the blouse. And this is in our Shrouded Serenity viscose chalet, which is a really lovely fabric. It's a really nice blouse pattern. Just a really sort of classic blouse.
So it is Movies Week on Sewing Bee. So for the pattern challenge, the sewers were tasked with making a jacket inspired by Hollywood costume designer extraordinaire Edith Head. And this was a jacket that she created for Tippi Hedren in Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. So nothing like putting the sewists to the test. Go on, right, we want you to make something inspired by an 8-time Oscar winner.
No pressure.
No pressure there whatsoever. So this was a real challenge, I think, of precision sewing, precision cutting. They were working a lot with wool coating, so I think there was particular ways they needed to handle the wool. And they had 5 hours to tackle this challenge. I think this was a tough ask in 5 hours.
This was. When they first announced it was 5 hours, I thought, oh, that's quite a long time. And then they revealed there was 17 pattern pieces to cut off. And I thought, okay.
Yeah, 17 pattern pieces. This is a fully lined jacket. So they had to bag it out through complicated methods. There was underarm gussets.
Yeah.
This was a tough one.
It was, and the way the kind of whole front and back and sleeve was all kind of one pattern piece, and then you just kind of like folded it and stitched the side seam. It was different.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I seem to be deep in coat making, jacket making territory. I've made 2 already this year. I've got 2 more on the way.
You're well prepared for the autumn.
That is absolutely true. But honestly, it takes me 5 hours to cut out an interface on my pattern pieces. I would be no use at this challenge. No. So honestly, I am so impressed at how well they all did on this challenge. I think there was literally only Gaynor didn't complete it.
Yeah.
And even she wasn't
far
off.
It was just a little tiny bit of sort of the lining at the bottom and things.
Sewn up the bottom of the lining.
Yeah, I think I would still be on sort of just trying to balance scraps of fabric on a mannequin and presenting that to Patrick and Esme, which they wouldn't be impressed with.
Probably not.
But I think that is about all I've managed to get done in 5 hours. So.
Yeah, so honestly, the sewers this year, they've all done such a fantastic job. I think they're such a good bunch. So I think maybe start with Gaynors then.
Yeah.
I thought she did, honestly, a super job. Gaynor went for the kind of grey herringbone wool, and I thought it was a really nice choice. It was very classic. She just ran out of time, really. I think she struggled a little bit with the instructions when it came to that bottom of that lining.
Yeah.
And so I think rather than do something that she thought might be a mistake, she's like, you know what, I'm going to make sure that I get it finished.
Yeah,
otherwise.
Which I think is when you're sort of faced with something like that, when you've not got much time left, I think getting the rest of it finished where you know you're doing it correctly.
Yeah.
And then leaving the little bit that you're not sure of is probably the best route to go down. But
absolutely. And the one thing she didn't get to was pressing it.
Yeah.
And I think you could definitely tell the difference in this with something that was pressed and something that wasn't.
Yes.
I think working particularly with thicker fabrics, but especially something like wool, it makes such a difference pressing those seams.
Yeah.
You just get that kind of flat, crisp edge. Otherwise, everything's just a bit bouncy.
Yeah, a bit bouncy. The seams are a bit bulky. You just really need to get in there with the iron and the steam and just really press
So,
it.
I reckon another 20 minutes of good pressing and hers would have looked fantastic.
So Kaz had a little bit of a nightmare with her cutting out.
I felt so bad for her.
I think when you're faced with unfamiliar shapes of pattern pieces, that can certainly throw you off a bit. And I think this, with the kind of the back and the front and the sleeve all being this one oddly shaped pattern piece, you're not going to look at it cut out and think, yes, that's the front of my jacket, because you're not used to that shape.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see how she saw this big piece of fabric and thought, oh, that's my fabric, and she was trying to save some fabric for those tiny little gusset pieces, which, we all try and save fabric, and if you've got little pieces like that, you'll squeeze them onto any little scrap you can find.
That is very true. Honestly, I have done this myself.
Yeah.
Where I've literally cut out pattern pieces and realised that I've cut them out of one of my other pattern pieces, and it is gutting. You feel so silly.
Yeah.
But how gutted would you be doing that, A, under time pressures on sewing bee, but also on such a big pattern piece?
Such a big pattern piece.
Because then you just have to cut the whole thing out again.
Yeah.
And honestly, for Kaz to be able to make that much of a mistake and recover and still get a completed garment out of, that really speaks to her skill, her resilience.
Yeah.
She did an amazing job. Coming back from that.
Oh yeah, I'd have been having a breakdown in the corner. I'd have just given up at that point.
She had a little cry, moved on.
Oh yeah.
I think that's the best way to deal with
yeah.
something like that, because good job her.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I think Orla and Yasmin, they both did a fantastic job, but I think they both had the same issue, which is very easy to do in a pattern like this. And that is that they both had their undercollar and their upper collar the wrong way around. And if you've ever made this kind of jacket or anything with this kind of upper and under collar, the difference between the two of them is so small.
Like centimetres, if that.
It's so easy to mistake one for the other. And if you haven't worked with this kind of garment, the idea is that your upper collar is just that little bit bigger so that when it sits on, it just hides the under collar and you've got that kind of neat finish. And if you get it the wrong way around, you just see the edge. That upper collar is just creeping out underneath. It doesn't look quite as good, but it's so easy to make.
It is, and I think when you've got like a wool coating fabric where there isn't really an obvious right and wrong side, you've not got an obvious way to mark the thing. It's really, really easy to just pick up those two pattern pieces and just sew them on the wrong way around.
And I think the only difference otherwise between kind of Yasmin and Orla's was that I think Orla was just able to get hers pressed a bit better.
Yeah.
And Yasmin, I think maybe had run out of time to do all
press
that.
It, yeah. I think she had a little bit of a raw edge on one of the gusset pieces, but I mean, they're so tiny and trying to fit them in that tiny little hole. And,
But obviously, Kit always comes up trumps with the pattern challenge.
They seemed so confident in this. Everyone else seemed so stressed. And there was Kit just like, oh yes, this is really, I'll just make this jacket. Off I go.
Yeah.
And no stress.
They just have an amazing ability to read a pattern, understand it, and get going with it.
Yeah.
And I think that really helps in the pattern challenges because they're not scratching their heads. They're not struggling with it. They're just cracking on.
Yeah.
The point where they said, oh, actually, it's quite straightforward.
I thought, really?
But then I think that maybe kind of lured them into a false sense of security when they top stitched that gusset. And I'm someone who, given the choice, will top stitch just about everything. It's kind of interesting, Patrick, going, actually, no, with something like this that's cut on the bias to give you that wiggle room, you don't want to top stitch it.
Yeah, I think they thought I'll add a bit of top stitching. It looks nice.
It'll be
It's a
more
bit of an
secure.
elevated detail. And it's just the knowledge of knowing why that pattern piece is there, why it's been cut on the bias.
Yeah, so that was interesting for me because I wouldn't have known that was a bad thing to do. And I think it's one of those, if Kit hadn't otherwise sewn it so perfectly, I think Patrick would have definitely marked Kit down below someone else. But I think it was just flawless. That kind of mustard green herringbone wool, it was just such a lovely choice. It looked beautiful. It was fantastic. Yeah. Absolutely couldn't fault it.
No, other than that little top stitching thing. And I mean, they didn't have a problem with the quality of the top stitching. It was just the reason it was there. It was neat top stitching.
Yes.
Just shouldn't be there. But
yeah,
other than that, it was just such a lovely jacket. And
absolutely. So if you fancy sewing up your own Tippi Hedren inspired jackets, we don't have anything quite the same on site. I think that was a particularly challenging and special design.
Yes.
But we do have something that we think would get you a similar look and probably be a little bit easier to tackle
Much
as well.
to everyone's relief.
Much to everyone's relief. And that is the Style Arc Harrier jacket. Now, this has got those clean 60s, slightly Chanel-inspired lines, which is very much where Edith Head came from with the design for the birds. This one has darts at the side, it buttons down the front. You've got separate set-in sleeves on this one, so you're not worrying with those giant pattern pieces. It's just a really chic design and will be fabulous in a whole load of different fabrics. I think you could make this up in a wool coating for something kind of Chanel-inspired for the autumn-winter. Likewise, in a light linen for summer, I think that would be fabulous too. And like all Style Arc patterns, this one comes in a fantastic size range. So this covers sizes 4 to 36 Australia, so that's kind of US 0 to 32, UK 4 to 36, and that's split across 2 size brackets as well, so just make sure you're picking up the right one for you. So if you were going to make this jacket, what fabric have you picked for it?
So I've picked a really lovely, and this is actually a dead stock fabric that we have here at Minerva, and it's this lovely wool coating. It's got this kind of herringbone sort of design to it.
Oh, that's
it's
lovely.
A lovely kind of like pale blue colour. It's lovely and soft. It's thick enough that it's going to be a good weight for a jacket, but it's not going to be too bulky when you're trying to do those seams. It's going to press really nicely, and I think it's just a really classic style. Going to make a really classic jacket for that kind of autumn, winter style.
For the cooler seasons, I think that would just be lovely.
Yeah, so that's my pick. And if you were going to make this jacket, what would you go for?
Well, I love The Birds. It's one of my favourite films. It's just, love it. And I know the suit and jacket that she wears in the film were intended to be this kind of parakeet lovebirds green. So I had to go for something a little bit green for mine. So I picked out this is 100% wool coating from Lady McElroy, and I love the colours in this.
So soft as well.
It's so soft. This wouldn't be scratchy at all against the skin. I mean, obviously, if you were making something like the one on the show, you'd line it anyway. But this is just such a soft, and it's quite a lightweight, quite a thin wool. Yeah. It would still be very warm, but I think that would make it quite easy to work with. And it's got this lovely mix of kind of greens, yellows. You probably won't be able to see it on screen, but there's a really subtle blue check running through it as well. I think it is just beautiful. And this particular fabric, there's 4 different colourways as well, all in that kind of greeny yellow tones. So there's some really lovely options there, and I think this would just make a fabulous jacket. So we couldn't possibly talk Movies Week without getting clapperboards involved. Ooh. However, we are talking sewing clappers. Now, you might have seen a few of the makers using one of these on Sewing Bee last night. And these are fantastic tools for getting really flat, neat seams, especially when you're working with thicker fabrics, with coating, with wool, Or particularly sometimes if you're working with a fabric where you can't really press on heavily with the iron, if it's something that might melt, clappers can be your friend. Because what you can do is you get your steam going and then you press down with your clapper. And what it does is that wood traps that heat from the steam in there and just makes sure that all that heat is pressing down. And you end up using the kind of weight and the heat, but you're not kind of pressing on with the iron. So it's a fantastic tool for getting good results with this kind of fabric. So absolutely well recommend these. This is the millward one, which we sell on site. And if you want to know a little bit more information about how these work, how to get the best of them, we've actually got two fantastic videos on site. We've got one from Steve, who's one of the previous Sewing Bee contestants. And we've also got one from our own Joe, who will take you through some fantastic tips for getting good results with a clapper.
So now on to the transformation challenge. And this week the sewers were given old cinema curtains and tiebacks and asked to transform them into a sort of glam outfit for an awards ceremony after party. So they had these really lovely but very heavy velvet cinema curtains, and then they had to use the tiebacks as well. And Patrick and Esme were very specific that they wanted the tiebacks to be used, so it wasn't optional.
Was not optional, no.
So what did you think of this challenge?
I thought this was an interesting one. It's one where they were all given basically a lot of fabric.
Yes.
And it was basically a huge piece of fabric that they could work with. And the fact that they all had red curtains, you'd think would have been a bit of a leveler, but you could definitely see that those curtains had slightly different shades. I think some were made from different materials and some were probably harder to work with than others.
Yes.
But I did think including all the tiebacks in there was an interesting twist, and you really saw some creative uses of those.
Yes.
So yeah, I liked this challenge.
Yeah, I thought when they first started, I thought, they're going to have it's going to be quite easy for them. They've got all this fabric to work with. And then we saw poor Orla.
Oh,
just
Orla.
Absolutely went to pieces.
Yeah, I think the judges had almost set a little bit of a trap for them.
Yes. In
that some of these curtains were so heavy, so thick, that whatever Orla had planned to do with it, and I really loved what she was doing with her draping. The fabric was just so heavy, she couldn't literally sew with it.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a really brave choice of Orla's to go, you know what? Sod this. I'm going to discard what I've been doing, and with 15 minutes left, grab a new curtain and start again. I'd have been holding it together with safety pins and hoping for the best.
I thought that was kind of where she was going to end up going. I thought it was going to end up just pinned on the mannequin and draped on, and it would look lovely, but would all sort of come apart when Patrick and Esme actually started looking at it closely.
Yeah.
So the fact that she made the decision to say, no, I am going to sew something together, very skimpy.
Very skimpy. I love the fact that she started from scratch and then still cut too much off and left her with this borderline risque garment.
Yeah.
But I think her kind of construction and where she was going with that kind of boob tube was nice. It just needed to be a bit bigger, and like Patrick said,
nothing was going to fit in that.
I mean, yeah, I think you'd be putting a lot of faith in some tape there to hold you in.
The underboob trend is a thing, but I think there's a limit to how much underboob you want.
Well, as Orla said, adult movies are also movies.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what their award shows are like, but maybe you could wear this to them.
Maybe, possibly.
So, yeah, I think it's understandable that Orla ended up in the bottom for this one.
Yeah.
Now, next up on the rankings was Gaynors. And I thought Gaynor really started off strongly, this one, because she'd taken one of the pair of curtains, taken the top off it, and then used that kind of pleated curtain tape around the bottom with the curtain kind of coming
Yes.
upwards, and then gathered it up into this really cool looking kind of boob tube top, but
Yeah.
kind of more structured. So I thought that part of it was amazing.
That was lovely. And I mean, Patrick and Esme always like it when they keep the elements of sort of the original fabric. So the fact that she kept the original pleating of the curtain, I think they would have really liked. And then the skirt.
The skirt was there.
It was there. It was, I think, again, Gaynor struggled with the weight and the thickness of the fabric. I think had it been a drapier fabric, not quite as thick, not quite as heavy, it would have had the look that she was going for, which would have been maybe a more figure-hugging, slim, sort of fitting skirt, and I think it would have worked better. But because it just had this sort of poofiness to it. But...
Patrick called it mumsy, which it's not probably what you want for a Hollywood after party.
No.
So, she did a good job, but it just such hard material to work with.
I think it was a lovely garment, a lovely idea, and she'd done a lot in the time, considering they only had 90 minutes. I think it just hadn't worked out quite maybe how she was hoping that it would.
So I thought then a big step up from there was Kaz's.
Yes.
So Kaz had taken her velvet and created almost like a 60s style, quite mob dress at the front. But she did some really clever things, I thought, with the tiebacks.
Loved the back of that dress.
The back of that dress was so dramatic. And I thought she did some really good things there.
Yeah, she'd really thought about the fact that the judges wanted to see the tiebacks being used. She'd really incorporated that into the design. And I thought it was really, really lovely. I think the judges kind of picked up that it was all kind of going on at the back and the front was maybe a little bit plain.
Yeah, I feel like if we've learned anything from the transformation challenges, front and back both need to have stuff going on. If it's all at the back, judges don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for a dress that's got it all going on at the back. Why not?
Well, and sometimes the most dramatic kind of red carpet shots are the kind of over the shoulder numbers. So I think that's a bit of a mean complaint, but I thought she did a really good job on this one. I always think Kaz does interesting things in the transformation challenges.
I think she's got the creative eye for the transformation challenges. I think she can really look at whatever weird and wonderful fabric that they've been given and transform it. Sometimes they get a 10. And transform it into something kind of really nice. I think she's got the creative vision that you need for the transformation challenge. Someone else who had the kind of like using the tie back detail at the back was Kit, who'd done that sort of like corset type ties with the tie back. They'd done that kind of like panel dress, like panels at the side. It was really nice. It was maybe not quite as glam like as some of the other ones, because it was like a short little dress, but I liked how they'd incorporated the tiebacks.
I get what you mean. I don't think it was as glam or as dramatic, but the construction that had gone into that kind of bodice, corset almost bodice, was fantastic. Like you, I really loved the way that they'd used the trim along the top of the bodice, but then kind of dismantled the tiebacks to create the lacing of the corset. That was so clever. The skirt was nice. But I think all that work really went into that bodice and corset element.
And I mean, again, when you've only got 90 minutes.
One thing I did really like about Kit's in particular was the way that they'd used the lining to create those panels in the corset. I thought that was a nice touch, and I don't think anyone else had used any lining. I'm not sure everyone else had lining on their curtains.
I'm not sure.
But I thought that was a nice touch, and they did a really good job.
And then we can't not talk about Yasmin's. I think she really hit the brief of glam, definitely. She created this gorgeous kind of like full-length dress. It had these lovely sleeves. She'd used the tassel from the tie back, and she'd kept the actual sort of like tassel bit on it as like this lovely sort of
that kind of
detail.
It's almost like a feature necklace. It was honestly superb.
She really, I could see that on the red carpet. I could see that at a sort of after party awards ceremony. It was really, really lovely. And to make that out of an old curtain
Yeah, I thought she used her 90 minutes so well. That felt elevated. It was glamorous. It wasn't in any way risque, but still looked stunning. I could see like Helen Mirren and Kate Blanchett just kind of walking down the red carpet in this. This was my favourite by far. Definitely. I thought she did an amazing job, and I think anyone would be happy to wear that.
I'd be happy to wear that.
Okay, so we've got a model for you, Yasmin.
If Yasmin wants to send her old curtain my way, then don't know where I'd wear it. I'm not winning any awards anytime soon. But...
Well, it's 2 weeks till the final, so you've got time to... absolutely. Yeah. Well-deserved win there for Yasmin.
So, if you were given an old cinema curtain and asked to transform it into a glam outfit, what do you think you would go for?
Well, I definitely think this was a deceptively difficult challenge.
Yes.
This here is our Minerva Core Range Cotton Velvet, which I think much easier to work with, much lighter. So this is probably, again, a bit deceptive. But what I think would have loved to have done is a little kind of draped halter neck top. So really kind of using the weight and drape of those curtains to get that kind of drama at the top. And then have backless on the halter neck top, but using those tiebacks to just kind of dangle down the back and make a bit of a kind of dramatic statement at the back. And then what I would have liked to have done is then a high-low hem skirt. So kind of keeping it kind of just above the knees, I think, at the front, but then draping back into a long train. Let's make use of the length and drape of those curtains. So that would be my vision. How I'd manage to do that in 90 minutes, we would have to see. And how about you?
I was also thinking halter neck when I was watching it, but I think I would use the actual tiebacks to kind of make that sort of halter neck. Again, probably like a long dress with a train. I think that just says glam to me. I need to have something going on at the front because,
Got to be at the front.
Maybe
Got to be at the front.
Get those tassels in there somewhere and, sort of drape it, see what happened.
Drape it, see what happens. So for the final challenge of Movies Week, we headed into the Made to Measure, and the sewists were challenged with making a costume for a character in a horror movie. Now, they had a terrifying 5 hours to accomplish this task, but they were allowed to pre-treat their fabrics beforehand. So they didn't have to deal with creating bloody handprints in the sewing room. So what did you think of this challenge?
I think this was a really interesting challenge. The fact they were allowed to sort of cut out their pattern pieces beforehand as well, but then the first time they could actually check those pattern pieces against their model, I think maybe kind of gave them a false sense of security of, I've got loads of time because I've cut out my pattern pieces, but obviously you've got to do all your adjustments. And Patrick and Esme were quite specific that they didn't want it to be a fancy dress costume. They wanted it to be something elevated, a proper costume. And I think they all kind of hit the brief on that. They all did really a lot of work went into all of their costumes.
Yeah, none of these felt like cheap fancy dress outfits.
And I loved all the backstories behind everyone's choice of costumes.
Some of them had really thought it through.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Orla had like a full-on movie script for her character. There was some nice folklore-inspired things. Yeah, it was just really a really interesting challenge, I think.
A really interesting one, and I think quite challenging in terms of you need a good concept to sell it, and without the right concept in the first place, I think it was always going to be harder for some than others. So I want to go straight in and talk about Kaz.
Yes.
Because I think her concept was fantastic. It was almost this kind of evil priestess vibes, and her design, what she'd thought about, I think for me, had it been executed perfectly, this would have been the top for me.
Yeah.
Because particularly that really dramatic kind of neck corset she
Yes.
created, that was such a dramatic idea. And I think it certainly gave an otherworldliness to the character.
Yeah, and I think just the fitting of that and the fitting of like the hood, I think because it came so close around her model's face, I think if she hadn't got the fit of that just right, it wouldn't have sort of wouldn't have had the same impact. The neck corset, obviously you don't want that to not fit because you don't want to strangle your model. But yeah, I think she struggled with her fabric choice, I think.
Yeah, I think it was a slippery fabric to work with.
I think it was like
a satin crepe
or something.
Which, you can get great results working with like a satin back crepe, but you will benefit from a bit more time.
Yeah.
And I think there were points where it was kind of a bit puckered and rippled. I think she had difficulty putting one of her invisible zips in. And hers was the most fitted of all the garments. So everything showed.
Definitely,
But I thought it was interesting. I thought there was a couple of the contestants this time round who were using like 3D printed elements.
Yes.
Now that front piece that she had on hers was a real kind of eye catcher. But yeah, I loved the concept. I really think it was, for me, it was the fit on that neck corset.
Yeah,
really
I think
let
Esme
it down.
kind of picked up that it was curling up a little bit, and I think had it not been curling up and things at the corners, had it been smooth and just all lying flat, it would have looked really a lot better. I think it would have had a lot more impact.
Yeah.
You would have seen that kind of binding around the edge a bit better and things. I think it was a great concept. She just didn't have the easiest fabric to work with when you're trying to rush a little bit.
Yeah, to do all that in 5 hours with kind of the dress, the cape, the hood. There was a lot of elements in that, but I thought she did a really good job, and it certainly was reading villain to me. And I saw those kind of evil queen from Snow White look in that kind of hood. It was a great idea, and with a bit more time, I think it would have been a winner. Yeah.
And then talking of tricky fabrics, Gaynor had that kind of chiffon, which I was surprised at how well she handled that. I think
she did a great job.
I've never sewn with chiffon myself, mainly because I don't want to, because I would have a breakdown. But I think she actually like kind of hemmed all the edge of that chiffon. It looked really nice. She had this scuba dress. Scuba is a lovely fabric to work with. I've just finished putting out a scuba dress and it's lovely. She had. It was a lovely concept, but I think it relied more on the story behind the garment rather than the garment itself.
Yeah, like you say, she'd drawn from folklore this Mary Morgan, beautiful siren luring people to their watery graves. And I really liked the way that she'd used these different colours of chiffon to create this kind of watery vibe. I thought it was a nice bit of sewing.
She
and like you say,
thought into it.
Her kind of rolled hem on that chiffon was superb. She'd managed it really nicely. Yeah. It just didn't read horror.
No, I think Gaynor's just too nice to do a horror movie outfit.
Well, yeah, I think, did she say she doesn't really want to watch horror movies? It's not really her thing. She's just so lovely.
She's so lovely, and she just didn't want to put her model in a scary outfit.
Yeah.
But I think she thought about the colours she was using and the fabrics to kind of get this siren theme. It relied too much on the story. I think if you hadn't known the backstory, the folklore story, you wouldn't have got the story just from the costume. I think. Yeah.
It's a shame, but if you do want to create something similar yourself, then our Minerva Core range, cationic chiffon in particular, I think that one has got a really kind of nice colour changing look to it. I think that would be brilliant at creating that kind of watery look, and I know that's a really popular one with cosplayers. So we've got loads of fabrics on site to create something similar if you fancy it. Now, another maker who I thought came with a really interesting, detailed concept was Yasmin.
Yes.
So her idea came from La Diablesse,
Yeah.
a kind of Trinidadian folklore, another kind of siren character.
I like the amount of folklore women who are just luring men to their deaths.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? But yeah, I think hers was, there was a lot of detail, a lot of elements in what she was making.
Yes. Yeah.
So her dress had a boned corset. She then had like an overskirt on it. It had like a broderie on glaze trim round it. And then she'd intended to do a dramatic bonnet as well to kind of complete the look. And she ran out of time, really.
Yeah, which I think, given the amount of sort of fitting that she'd given herself to do, is understandable. She had this bone corset that had to fit. She had like elastic around the sleeves, which needed to sort of hold in place so they're not going to slip down, but not also cut into her model. I think there was a lot of fitting elements, so she was spending a lot of time on that. I mean, putting bone in channels and then putting the bone in the corset is going to take time. So I think understandable she didn't get to finish her hat, but I think it would have just finished the costume.
Yeah. I do think that even with the hat, it didn't read horror as much as some of the other outfits did. I think partly that was because it just looked too clean and crisp and nice. So they'd had that opportunity to treat the fabrics, and she did have like a bloody handprint on the skirt, but then I think the overskirt kind of covered it up. And then she had all this kind of dirtied edges on her dress skirt, but then Patrick said, well, it was too neatly done. It just looked like a border print.
I could see where he was coming from, because it was kind of just all round the bottom and it didn't really come up the skirt at all. Yeah. And then,
I feel like if maybe she'd have done a little bit more distressing before entering the sewing room. So she used a cotton madras shirting for her dress, which we have this very similar one on site. This is a gorgeous fabric. It's beautiful colours, but I think this is just too pretty on its own. I think this part of the outfit needed probably distressing a lot more.
Rip it and put some dirt on it and
distress, and I think it would have really accentuated that horror vibe.
I think again, similar to Gainer's, the costume as it was relying too much on the story behind it, and if you didn't know the story, then
the makeup that they'd done on the model was fantastic.
Props to the makeup team.
That looked quite terrifying, and she'd sewn it really well. I think both Yasmin and Gaynor had done some really fabulous sewing.
Yeah, you couldn't fault their sewing, really. It was just whether it quite hit the brief.
Yeah.
So, talking of kind of doing all the work on your fabric and kind of creating things beforehand, Orla really went all out with this and kind of 3D printed this gory kind of spine thing for this horror doll costume. She'd put so much thought into it. She'd put so much thought into the story.
I feel like maybe a little bit too much thought.
I'm like, maybe Orla wants a career as a horror movie writer. I don't know. She had the full story going, but she'd put so much work into creating this gory kind of spine to go on the back. She'd got this hood that she'd kind of created this weird kind of like shrunken face on it. She'd got the wig that she'd plaited and everything. Yeah, she'd put so much work into the whole outfit. It was really quite scary. I think I would have been scared as the model, just having that hood over my face. I would have been panicking that I couldn't breathe. So
this was definitely turned into a story of two hoods. This particular challenge.
Yeah.
Absolutely, what what Orla did with that hood, those creepy little buttons below where the eyes were.
Yeah.
If those buttons had been where the eyes were, it wouldn't have been nearly as creepy.
It was the fact that they were
and
below,
they were slightly wonky.
Yeah. And you could just about see the shape of the model's actual face behind the hood, so you could tell where her eyes were and where the button eyes should have been.
But it was a really clever concept. She thought it through so much. I love the fact that it was unnerving from the front.
Yes.
That kind of, I guess it's that uncanny valley thing of things just being a bit off.
Yeah, and I think the buttons were given, if you've ever seen the film Coraline.
Yes,
that was terrifying. So, yeah, I think it was very unnerving from the front, like you say. But
then that gory back.
You turn around and it's just this thing coming out of the back.
The way she'd kind of scrunched up that dyed fabric to make it look kind of visceral and bloody was just ingenious.
Yeah.
I thought she did a really clever job there. The dress itself, I thought it was giving kind of doll.
Yeah.
Because it looked kind of, it fitted the model but also looked a bit awkward.
Yeah, I think Patrick picked up on that the fit was just the right amount of not quite fitting, if that makes sense. That it was kind of a bit lopsided and the sleeves were a little bit short and the model kind of had to stand a bit awkwardly in it. And yeah, I think it added to just the overall creepiness of the costume. But yeah, I think she'd done a lot of work in the 5 hours and it really paid off. It was a fabulous costume.
Yeah, this is a horror film that I would like to see between my fingers.
Oh yeah, behind the cushion.
Behind a cushion, behind the sofa. But yeah, I thought absolutely nailed the brief on this one.
Yeah.
Another one who completely nailed the brief in terms of horror was Kit. And their Doctor Who inspired scarecrow.
Yeah.
Now, I think scarecrows are quite creepy.
I think they are. I mean, there's the Doctor Who scarecrows. I think I must be a little bit older than Kit. I remember the scarecrow episode, but I was a little bit too old to be scared by that one. But I do remember Cillian Murphy in the Batman films where he had that horrible, horrible scarecrow mask on. That was scary.
But also, I think the bit that I liked the most about Kit's outfit was the work that they'd done on the hood. Now, for me, that felt very much inspired by Oogie Boogie from Nightmare Before Christmas, who's kind of like a weird sack monster type thing. Now, working with a Hessian, a jute fabric, that's not easy.
It's not the most... It doesn't quite behave how you
It's not particularly flexible. So I think the work that they did to get that level of expression, and I think, like Esme said, there was a malevolence in the look of that. It had like the kind of creepy, even kind of like a forehead going on, and that kind of stitched mouth. Honestly, I thought that was amazingly well done. And what Kit really, really went to town with, which they were encouraged to do, was the distressing element.
Yeah, but obviously some of the other sewers had done their distressing beforehand, and Kit was doing it in the time, because they were going to use the kind of like animal bedding straw thing.
I'm glad they didn't
I feel like their model was probably glad that they didn't have to literally wear straw. So they spent quite a bit of time distressing all that fabric.
Yeah. So I think the fit of the garment, I get that it was a looser fit than some of the others, which maybe made it a bit more forgiving as a fit. But it was perfectly proportioned to just, again, like Orla's, just to be awkward and menacing. And then the way the cuffs kind of flowed over the hands and they distressed the jute over those, the way that they tied the rope round it. And then when you looked closely, they distressed the linen jacket and the trousers as well. There was so much detail when you cropped in on it.
Definitely, yeah.
So I feel like some elements of the sewing on kits were maybe a bit simpler, but finish
Oh, yeah.
the finish was camera ready. You could have put that straight onto a Hollywood set and they'd be ready to go.
Definitely,
which I feel like was more so than any of the others.
Yeah.
So I thought absolutely fabulous job.
Yeah, they nailed the brief on it being a costume rather than just like a sort of quick fancy dress look. It really was, like you say, ready to go, kind of could have been filmed for a TV, for a film. It was really well made and genuinely quite terrifying.
Yeah, I think of all of them, this is the one that I would least want to be trapped in a lift with.
Oh god.
It was genuinely scary.
Yeah.
I love the way that Esme sidles up to the model and is like, "You're not going to kill me, are you?" Not today.
Yeah,
I think that says that the model was almost straight into that character. They really felt the kind of creepy, awkward gangliness of it. Yeah, fantastic job.
Fabulously so, yeah.
So, who would have been your garment of the week this week?
Well, I was, like the judges, I was really, really struggling. I wasn't sure where they were going to go with it. Like them, I was between Kit and Orla, really. I thought Kit's was just absolutely fantastic. Really well sewn, really well thought out, but then Orla's as well. I couldn't really fault Orla's. It was creepy, it was scary, it fit the brief, it was well sewn. So like the judges, I couldn't decide.
I am happy to sit on that fence with you. I thought both of them totally hit the brief. I thought Kit's finish and execution was amazing. Orla's vision and storyline was just inspired, and particularly the work she did on that spine was just unexpected and creepy. So yeah, I think it's rare. I think I'm not sure I remember a draw.
No, I'm not sure.
They've probably done it before, but I don't remember a draw. I feel like it was probably quite deserved this week.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, how did you feel about who went home?
I think I love Gaynor. She's so sweet. She's so lovely. And
who does not? She is
her
so nice.
sewing, her level of sewing, she's clearly got a lot of experience, a lot of skill. And I think that kind of showed through in the earlier weeks. But then maybe kind of recent weeks where they're wanting a bit more creativity, I think she's struggling a little bit with that. And she's focusing on her high level of sewing.
Yeah.
And she's missing the creativity.
Yeah, I feel like she just sticks within her comfort zone a little.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like she will be really missed in the sewing room because she's just adorable.
She's so sweet.
I think everybody here absolutely loves her.
Yeah.
But I think it was a fair call. I think this time you've got a really strong top four there.
Yes.
I think they've all done some fantastic stuff. And I do think Yasmin's transformation this week was just so good that she kind of earned her place in the semi-final with that one.
Yeah.
So if you were faced with this challenge and had to create a horror movie costume, where would you have gone with this one?
I think I would have gone creepy clown. Clowns are always creepy.
Clown.
The It films are always quite scary. That clown with the little red balloon and the trike thing, just terrifying. So I have picked out Simplicity 8773, which is these kind of range of different clown, jester costumes. And I would have paired it with, I've got two kind of lovely polycotton fabrics, which are really good, easy to sew, good for holding a print. So these are our core range fabrics. So I've gone for a nice kind of stripy one and a nice spotty one. I think I would have kind of done half and half and just made it really creepy. I'm not sure. Maybe put some kind of distress the fabric, like they say. Maybe put some bloody handprints on. Maybe 3D print a gory spine. Why not?
Why not?
And what do you think you would have done?
Well, when they said it was movies week and horror theme for the final, I finally remembered that for a Halloween here at Minerva a couple of years ago, I made an outfit inspired by a movie.
Ooh.
So I thought, hey, why not show that one?
It's like stars in their eyes.
Isn't it? So obviously, when I thought Hollywood leading man, I had to go Woody from Toy Story. So obviously, he's like the original haunted doll.
Yeah.
So I think if I was going to do this for the sewing bee, I think what I would, my bit of kind of pre-distressing would be to put like a giant bloody handprint kind of going over the waistcoat, over the shirt, but kind of kid size to a doll. So really oversized, really kind of dramatic. So this particular one, the top is the Seamwork Paxson sweatshirt, which is a PDF pattern from Seamwork. Any other sweatshirt pattern would also do. And this is a dead stock sweater knit fabric that we have here on site. And then this is a very quickly self-drafted waistcoat in our little cow print polar fleece.
Very cute.
Which our cats also like to sleep on. And then the finishing touch is these ridiculous oversized buttons, which I think are a great way of giving that kind of scale image of being like a toy. So yeah, I think I would go with something like this, but bloodied up.
Make it creepy.
Make it creepy. So that brings the quarterfinal to a close, and next week is the semi-final. So let's take a look at where the stats are sitting. When it comes to the pattern challenge, unsurprisingly, Kit's still sitting there right at the top. So out of the 8 challenges we've had so far, Kit has won 6 of them.
So it's just their challenge. I think they're so good at reading the instructions, making sure they don't rush ahead, which I think some of the other sewers struggle with in, I know how I'm doing this, so I'm just going to go for it. Kit is so good at reading each step, sewing that step, coming back to the instructions, just following them so well. It's definitely their challenge.
Yeah, they're just so cool and calm under pressure.
Flustered,
Never get flustered. But, has to be said, Kaz and Yasmin have both won a pattern challenge too. So all the pattern challenge winners are still there. Anything could happen in the next 2 weeks. So when it comes to the transformation challenge, that's always been a more varied one in terms of winners. So Dan, who has now won 1 episode, Kaz has won 1, Yasmin has now won 1, Orla has won twice, and Kit has won 3 times. Ooh. So everyone who's in the semi-final has won a transformation challenge. It feels like everyone who's left really enjoys that challenge.
Yeah, they've all got the creativity for it. They all just enjoy doing it, I think, which is always nice to see. I think sometimes some of the sewers you can see that they don't particularly like the transformation challenge. So it's nice to see that the sewers that are left are the ones who enjoy getting creative, having this sort of being put on the spot with a random bit of fabric.
Yeah, I feel like particularly Kaz, Kit, probably Orla too, they just seem to love the challenge of this.
Yeah.
And they've come up with some amazing things. Now, when it comes to the made to measure, Kaz has to be up there with some of the best that we've had. She's won 3 challenges overall, but it's now getting really close.
It is.
Because with today's joint win, both Kit and Orla have both stacked up 2 wins each. So there's very little to kind of call between those. Beyond that, Dan and Peter both won made to measures. So Yasmin's the only one of the semi-finalists who hasn't won a made to measure yet. But I do think she's been very close on a few occasions.
Maybe next week will be her week. Who knows?
I would love her to
it would be nice for them all to have sort of had a chance at winning kind of garment of the week made to measure. Yeah.
But going into the semi-final, I think things are really close.
Yes.
And anyone could go through to the final.
Yeah, I think they're all really talented sewers, but also really creative. They've got that great combination of kind of creativity and skill. I think it's anyone's competition at this point. So that's a wrap for week 8 of Sewing Bee. Let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments down below. Did you think the right garments won Garment of the Week? Did the right sewer get sent home? And who do you think might be in for a place in the final? So next week is 1920s week.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting one because I love to see a bit of vintage sewing.
Yes.
Now, I think they were particularly obscure, oblique.
Yes.
They didn't tease
They've not
much
revealed
yesterday.
much, no.
So we'll be interested to see how they bring 1920s style through. We saw some polo shirts in there for the transformation challenge. They teased kind of special moments for a 1920s party made to measure. We're going to see some flapper dresses, bit of the jazz age going on.
Bit Great Gatsby vibes.
I'd be surprised if we didn't.
Yeah.
maybe a bit of Weimar, Berlin. Who can say?
Yeah.
Anything could happen. Now, next week, Annie, you're going away on holiday.
I am.
So that means that, fingers crossed, we're going to have a special guest joining us in studio. So do let us know in the comments if there's anyone in particular you'd like to see. And I will be back then next week. Annie will be back joining us for the final.
Hopefully with a nice tan.
Hopefully that will be good. Especially if the challenge requires a tan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
Not
perfect.
sure if it will, but... So if you've sewn anything kind of inspired by the show, if you've ever made some costumes, particularly any particularly scary things, share them over on site. We'd love to see them. We'd love to see all your makes. So go over, create a free account if you haven't already, and start sharing your makes with our sewing community. And one of us will see you next week.
Bye.